welcome to another episode of the Super Bold podcast. I'm Fred Joyal, and I am here today with Chris Felton, who is the author of Think and Grow You. And man, do I love that title. We're going to dive into how that book was created and why. He's a long-term financial services advisor and entrepreneur, has made significant money helping people make significant money. But he's also learned some very powerful life lessons and made some bold moves and has some great insights. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Stick with it because I think you're going to find some real gems in here, everybody. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Fred, awesome to be here. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
So you and I came from the same limiting beliefs about rich people growing up. And boy, did that hurt me because I managed to make really good money. And what the reaction was, I had to spend it all because I didn't want to be a rich person. So let's talk about that limiting belief that so many of us adapt and where that comes from, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, when we show up as babies, Fred, we're perfect and we have no limiting beliefs, right? And then from age 0 to 4, we're 50% programmed around money's good, money's bad, people good, people are bad, whatever. And then by the time we're 18, we're 95% hardwired program. So most people don't have this programming of money's good, money's great. It's the most mentioned topic, second most mentioned topic in the Bible, money. And so my parents were rich people stink, they're bad people. Money won't make you happy. You can't, it doesn't come from trees, all these things we get. And then society hardens those beliefs. And if you think about the movies, in Spider-Man, I mean, the Green Goblin is a billionaire.
Yeah.
The movie Titanic, one of the worst movies ever portraying wealthy people, right? They're upstairs.
Yeah, they are the worst.
They're the worst. Downstairs, everyone that's broke, could barely make it on the ship, is partying, dancing on tables. I'm dating myself. Gilligan's Island, right?
Yes.
Thurston Howell and his wife, they're totally aloof. Not even so. There's just our internal programming, and then society programs us, and it's one of the reasons why 90+% of people never experience financial independence is because they never look at that programming again. And
I keep examining my own money psychology because I keep finding these things. That was a revelation to me when I sort of got to that point, because my mom really transmitted this. Rich people are greedy, rich people are a-holes. That whole thing, and I kept meeting really successful, really wealthy people. And I started to just, estimate how many of them were actually that fulfilled that definition. And it was a real minority. I mean, I know billionaires who are generous and focused on making a difference in the world and taking care of their people, and the people that work for them, and bringing more value to the world. And I'm like, wow, I'm really clinging to this belief, but I saw how it affected me in my spending. And because it's like, I can't hang on to my wealth because I don't, and it's like deep in my subconscious, I don't want to be a rich person by my old hardwired definition. So how do you let go of that? How does somebody release themselves from that?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of my mentors, a guy named Steve Seibold. He's got the longest running study of self-made millionaires and billionaires on the planet. He's interviewed over 1,300 over the last 35 years,
Wow.
and his his study has shown. He wrote a book called How Rich People Think. His study shows that all of them, pretty much, unless you're like a Kennedy, right, where you just like grow up in the environment, nothing, you're like a fish in water. Like fish don't know what water is because they grow up in it, right?
Yeah.
So unless you grow up in the environment, that's a small percentage. All those people that he interviewed, Fred, at some point, and I was 37 when it happened to me, just called BS and was like, is this, because my favorite thing is me plus a thought equals a result, right? So if I'm broke, there's me, and then there's the thinking that's creating the result. And so in his study, at some point, they all said, this isn't working for me. And then they went into the process of really uncovering their beliefs in this curious way. And that's what I did. I wasn't broken. There wasn't anything wrong with me, but number one, I hired a financially independent coach, right? Because there's a lot of broke coaches that give you advice on money.
Most of them, oddly enough.
Yeah.
It's like, why am I taking advice from you? You're driving an old Camry,
Yeah. Well, and my thing I was $250,000 in credit card debt. I was a CPA. I was a financial advisor. I'm in the Great Recession. I'm staring down divorce number 2. And my wife is just like, what is wrong with you? Right. And I wrote a LinkedIn article, I think it's about a year ago, of like, why are there so many smart, talented, broke people? And so I was a smart, talented, broke guy. And it was because beliefs are the star of the show. So anyway, hired the coach. And the first thing he did for me, Fred, was he said, okay, get a journal, a green one. It's your money journal. He said, you no longer have a money problem. You have a money project. Changed my life.
Say that again, because I love that. Because that's people say I got a problem with money, or money's my biggest problem.
No, he said you no longer have a problem. You have a project. You no longer have a money problem. You have a money project. Because the problem is when we look at problems, we're like, oh my God, woe is me, Mount Everest, victim. Oh my God, but projects, we view projects totally different, right? Like projects, we'll see it all the way through. Like I got a friend, he's less handy than me, Fred, less handy. And he's like, I am building a deck for my family. Dude, this took forever. It snows in Colorado. He tore it down. Dude, he faced all this adversity, but it was a project for him because he had a compelling vision of his future of hanging out with his family, having barbecues on the deck in the summer. And so projects, we see projects all the way through, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Problems will stay in our lives forever. So he's like, you got a money project. He's like, you've been thinking the same crap around money for decades. You're not going to spin out of it in 21 days, dude. But you need to sit your ass down. And I want you, and this is how it started for me, I want you to write the word money down. And I want you to write down everything you make up about that word. And what we talked about, rich people suck. Most people have money issues. There's a hard thing going on there. Hard to make, hard to keep. My dad told me, wealthy people make money on the backs of poor people. My mom said, money, either have it or you don't. There's a lady, Margaret Lynch, she wrote a book called Tapping into Wealth, one of the best wealth books I've ever read. She says the biggest determining factor of your financial success is the vows that you made to gain acceptance into your family at a young age. And so, meaning you buy their BS just to get their love. So at 37, I wrote down, I sat with it for a couple hours. I wrote down all this crap, and it's in my book, of all the stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I finally met the enemy. It is me. And with that list of head trash, I was never going to get wealthy. So the plan was, what did I really want it to be? What is the new story I wanted? And then just doing the not so easy work of shifting those beliefs one at a time.
But it became a project because you were gonna whittle away at those things. And so what does a money project look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think step one is just, I mean, really understanding, what do I make up about that word? And anywhere where you struggle, I advise a lot of people that are in sales. They're looking for some script. They're like, well, let's just write the word sales down and let's see what your relationship with that word is. And it's usually nasty, right? Convincing, right? Used car salesman, manipulative,
deceptive. Yeah.
Of course you're going to suck at sales if that's your internal belief system, right? So anyway, but it was okay. This is the way it is, and then what do I really want it to be? That was the next step. Money makes a good person better and a bad person worse. I'm a good person. For me, money's the scorecard of the value I'm creating for other people. Right? If I'm making more money, I'm adding more value. From the only self-made billionaire I know, one of my mentors, he says, making and saving big money is easy. These are just affirmations, Fred, that and people are like, affirmations don't work. I'm like, you're totally right.
Because you've decided affirmations don't work. Right.
And I affirm that they do. And so, dude, I did just some of this hard work and, the coaching. And I mean, I wasn't interested in a better financial life. I was committed to it. And most people are only interested. So it was reprogramming my subconscious. There's technologies I talk about in my book. I mean, I was all in, bro. Like, if you had told me to stand on my head for an hour was going to change my financial life, I was going to do it. But it was more about changing that eternal story. I attract success, abundance, and peace into my life because that is who I am. One of my favorite ones. And so it was
really. I love, when I hear something that strong, I like to hear it. I like people to hear it again because it's so clear. And I believe in affirmations too. And I believe that whole thing of I forget who said it. I think it was Henry Ford, but I could be wrong. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. But say that affirmation again, that beautiful affirmation.
Yeah. I attract success, abundance, and peace into my life because that is who I am. And so, like, and my coach is like, dude, like, the price to be paid, Chris, is not hard work. It is you holding this image of what it is that you want financially. It is doing the work of affirming. It's morning routines. It's all this stuff. It's a project, right? And you need to hold the image in your mind, and you don't necessarily need outside affirmation that it's working. Because eventually the outside world will shift to your internal intent. So just a real quick story around that affirmation. I was saying that forever. And all I could see was just crap, right? I attract success, abundance, and peace in my life because that is who I am. And all I was doing is attracting crap. He's like, it's all right, man, just stick with it. Just stick with it. Just stick with it. Stick with it. And so it's a story in my book, Fred. It's unbelievable. So we had moved past all this garbage. We had took our income up 3 times from where it was. We paid off $250,000 of credit card debt. We stayed married. We became successful, not just in money, but in all these other areas. So we had a place up in Keystone, Colorado, right in the mountains. And I just got done from this run in the summer on the Snake River. Unbelievable. Like, there's moose and moose babies. And I mean, and I was coming around the corner and I had realized, I said, I attract success, abundance, and peace because that is who I am. I just stopped and I lost it, man. Because I'm like, holy shit, I am that. like that, affirming that for all the years, like in that moment, I'm like, I didn't need to affirm it anymore because I was that. I was success, I was abundance, and I was peace in that moment. And it was a magical moment. I can still see it exactly where I was. I can still see the image in my head. And I'm just happy that I persisted with affirming something like that, because eventually your outside world will match your internal state.
Yeah, and don't expect it to be overnight. One of my mantras is, and I say this every day, I'm a wealth magnet.
Yeah.
And I use the word wealth because to me it means more than money. It means I am rich in friends. I am rich in fun and adventure and fulfillment. All of my wealth is all of those things, and I attract it. And that is what happens. I mean, I just yesterday I get on a plane, and a woman sat next to me on the plane. She recognizes me because she's a dentist. Now, I've worked most of my life running 800 dentists as a company, so I'm extremely well known in the dental industry. She's going to a convention in the town I now live in Providence. That I haven't heard anything about this event, but I have been to this event years ago. It's mostly speakers in the dental industry. We end up talking. She's becoming a speaker. I end up giving her a half hour how to become a better speaker coaching session. And she's like typing it into her phone. And she says, you gotta come and be my guest, go to the reception. I said, yeah, I'm going to know like 20 people there if I go. Now, it was this great thing for her. It was mostly abundance for her, but I'm sure I'm going to have a great time. I would have not known this was happening in Providence, where I'm living right now, and I'm going to get to go to it tonight. She could have been anywhere on that plane.
Unbelievable.
And we would have not known that each other existed. But she sat next to me. I mean, that's what a belief in abundance can do, is like, and she was like, oh, God put you next to me. She said, I'm just his employee. It's like, I just show up wherever I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like, it's so powerful. Now, one of the things that you did, and I talk about boldness, and one of the boldest things that a person can do is acknowledge that they need a coach, and realize that all successful people have coaches. And so if you think you don't need one, look at athletic teams. What sports team functions without coaching? They wouldn't even consider it. But we go like, I don't really need a coach for my money, my behavior, my success. But you found a great coach, and I think there's a humility to that says, okay, I need a guide here, because I'm not perfect. So how did you find his name? Steve?
No. Coach Roy Dayton. He passed away a couple years ago. He was in his late 80s, but when I worked with him, he was in his late 70s. But yeah, I mean, Fred. I mean, really, the moment was I once again. I mean, we were $250,000 in credit card debt. Great recession. I'm an entrepreneur, and I had to ask my wife to lend me the money to pay my ex-wife alimony, child support.
I don't see that as being difficult at all.
Oh yeah. So we call it the purse throwing incident, right? So my wife is like 5'1", everyone's scared of her, and she just lost it, right? And F-bombs galore after throwing her purse at me. I mean, what kind of woman throws her purse at her husband? A very pissed off woman. And
an angry woman. Yeah.
Angry woman, right? Hurricane Marlowe, and she threw it at me 3 times. And I said, well, why are we still married if it's so bad? And she looked at me and went upstairs to figure out the answer to that question for the rest of the night. And then that's what woke me up, is I just kind of saw all these dominoes happening in my life. My ex-wife was the first domino. I blamed her for a lot of this. And I realized that in that moment, she never had a chance because I expected our relationship to fail. And one of my favorite quotes is, you don't get what you hope for, but you get what you expect. And most people hope positive, but they expect negative. And so what are you really expecting? Great question to sit with for an hour with a journal, because you are getting exactly what you expect. My kids were little. I was in Denver. They were in Atlanta. I couldn't see them. I was too broke. I was a drunk. So just all the messes going on. So this was the humbling moment where I'm like, oh, there's a common theme here, and it's me. And I was living in hopium, which people that don't need coaches live in hopium. And hopium is they're hoping the outside world will change while they insist on remaining the same. I call that rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, it was the first time in my life I just took 100% responsibility and sought out my coach, and my wife and I joined together and worked together. But to answer your question, my coach, anytime I'd fight him on stuff that he knew was good for me, he would say, hey man, based on results, like how's your way working?
Brutal.
And I'd be like, what? He's like, listen, he's like, you're kind of a drunk, you're kind of a mess. Did you know you're $250,000 in credit card debt? Your very hot, smart, talented, attractive wife is still with you, but she's got one foot out the door. Your kids don't know you.
How's that working?
How's that working for you? I was like, all right. He only had to do it a handful of times. I use it on my guys too, and they're like, I know.
Oh no,
it's based on results. I know, because our ego's not our amigo. Our ego's not our amigo. Anyway,
ego's not our amigo. I like that. Yeah, because it is so true, and you know, as long as we're able to blame other people and other situations for what's happening to us and what we're creating in our lives, then there's the comfort zone of being the victim. It's not me.
Yeah.
I'm not responsible for this. It's all of this other stuff. It's my parents. It's the economy. It's my gender, whatever it is, you know. It's
how's that working
avaricious
for you?
people. How's that belief working for you?
Yeah. And so if you like your results, you don't need a coach.
Yeah. If you are at peak at all times, why would you need a coach?
Yeah, you don't need a coach. Yeah. We all have blind spots, left arm devices. We do nothing, right? We freeze, or we make the wrong thing, or we're like, your whole thing is, you know, being bold. And the opposite of being bold is taking comfort. And there's a quote I started my book with from Jeff Shore: a life spent seeking comfort results in an entirely uncomfortable existence.
Wow.
So good.
Yes.
A life spent seeking comfort results in an entirely uncomfortable existence.
Yeah. And see, in my book, I talk about the danger of the comfort zone, is that people pursue comfort as a goal. And I say, no, comfort is where you go to, it's a fueling station. It's a rest stop so you can go back out and be uncomfortable, because all the important stuff happens when you're uncomfortable. All your growth happens when you're uncomfortable. And I'm attracted to people and actually mostly focus on people who are in a growth mindset. It's like, that's like, they're always saying, I can get better. I need feedback. And I mean, and that's like we were talking about a coach. It's like, you have to be willing to say, I might be wrong about this and I can't see it. And somebody reflects on it and you go, wow, that was painful to hear. Is that true? Versus what I'm telling myself. Because I always want to say to people, what are you telling yourself? And could that possibly be true? Could that, even, or is it just a place to hide? Is it a place to shift responsibility? Because one of the things that my favorite thing that I ever learned from Tony Robbins was he said, the day you take responsibility for everything in your life is the day your life starts.
Yeah. That was my first moment. Well, and just the whole comfort thing too. Like, comfort is a man-made definition, right? As I look out and I'm like, these trees out here, they're not seeking comfort, right? They're either growing or dying. Yeah. So if you're seeking comfort, you're actually in decay mode, because there's no comfort in nature, right? It's just a man-made virus that we've become a part of.
Yeah. And it's unfortunately in this world and in this country, it's really easy to be comfortable and just watch TV and eat what you want and all of those things and watch the decades click off. And then all of a sudden you say, okay, well, where's my satisfaction? And it's almost nowhere. And but if you focus completely on comfort, you don't have the skills to be uncomfortable, to take risks, to be bold. And that's what I try to coach people on, is like, boldness is something you have to develop.
Yeah.
It's not, don't say I wasn't born with it, so I'm not going to be bold. I'm going to say this is a learnable skill. The bold people you see either learned it or they never had it socialized out of them by somebody saying, don't draw attention to yourself. Don't be a show off. Don't take risks. We have a lot of people have parents that they don't want their kids to experience any discomfort. Yeah. So they protect them from it and they prevent them from taking even the slightest risk. But all growth comes with risk.
Yep, for sure. Amen.
And so the title of your book is Think and Grow You. What are some of the ways somebody grows themselves?
Yeah, I mean, money's, I like the money project. That's, because I think people try to focus on too many things and nothing gets done, right?
Yeah.
And when I made the decision I was going to change my money story, I found a quote from Billy Graham, and the quote is, once you get your attitude straight around money, it helps straighten out every area of your life. Unbelievable quote. And so for me, focusing there, right, caused me to forgive my ex-wife. You and I could do a 2-hour show on forgiveness. People suck at it. And I also think it's one of the reasons God put the book on my heart was forgive. And everybody wants, peace of mind. I mean, the reason I went on the personal development journey, that I did, was I wanted peace in my life, and I wasn't going to have peace in my life unless I had a peaceful mind. And unless I had peace in my finances. But my coach, our first session, Fred, he taught me how to set goals. He's like, dude, you're like the greatest goal setter, but you're like the worst goal achiever. Like it's unbelievable. You're so good at setting goals, but God, you suck at achieving them. Anyway, so we do our first session, Fred, and because there's a lot of ways you grow yourself. I think this is the most important one. So we end our first session, and I hired him to double our income. I'm like, dude, we got to double our income, or just to get back to you, and to save $100,000 because we were broke.
Mm-hmm.
And it all seemed like Mount Everest. And so I'm a CPA, I'm a left brain advisor, and I'm looking for the strategery, right? And so we end our first coaching session, and he goes, I got a homework assignment for you. I'm like, oh, goody, homework. Yay. I'm a CPA dorky guy. I want homework, right? And he said, I want you to forgive your ex-wife.
Ooh.
And I'm like, she's horrible. Like, what are you talking about? Like, she's part of the reason I'm in this mess, blah, 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 blah. And that's the first time he used it. He said, based on results, how's your way working? And I said, okay, how do I forgive her? He's like, this is what I want you to do. When we're done, by the way, he's like, if you don't do this, I fire you as a client and I keep your money.
That's pretty clear.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, how do I do it? He's like, I want you to do this every day until you no longer need to. When we're done, I want you to grab a pad of paper. I want you to write her name at the top, and I want you to write down everything you appreciate about her. And do it every day until you don't need to. And you will know when you won't. And so that's what I did. I wrote her name down, and I stared at a blank piece of paper for an hour. And I realized the resentment was real. And I don't think it's time management. I think it's energy management. And the energy leak of resentment, you can't get wealthy because you have such a leak around resentment. And so I was just like, holy crap, he's right. So the hour ended. I had nothing on the page, Fred. And finally I said, she's a great mom. And she is.
Wow, it took that long to get it.
Yeah. So the next day I did the exercise again. I found one more thing, and I did it again. I found one more thing. So after about 3 weeks, I had a good running list, about 12 to 14 things. So then I started just running through my mind. I'd be on a jog or I'd be, driving. I'd go through the list every single day, and my brain completely rewired around how I saw her. And within 90 days, all those old neural pathways of hate and anger and disgust and resentment were replaced with new neural pathways of appreciation and love and gratitude. And I'll stop it there. But like that transformed everything. And it changed my kids forever. She remarried a guy that I got a story in the book about how I came to quick acceptance around another guy who was going to be raising my kids. Never had a negative thought around him. I've just shown love and appreciation to her forever. And this is the topic when I do keynotes. It's the last thing I talk about. And I'll come off stage and people will be like, what are you talking about? Like, you're telling me my business sucks because I haven't forgiven my ex, my mom, my dad, my this, my that. I'm like, I don't know, man. Based on results, how's your way working? Anyway, and so how do you grow? You let it go.
There we go. Yeah, and I love that idea that you don't know what the linkage is between this resentment that you're carrying over here and this satisfaction and fulfillment over here. One of my favorite quotes and when I tell people who've never heard this, they go, "Oh, yeah, I do that." I said, the quote is, "Resentment is like drinking poison, hoping the other person dies."
Yep.
And it just eats you. And when it takes boldness to forgive, knowing that the apology is never coming. That all you're trying to do is release yourself from the resentment. You're not looking for that person to even respond to the forgiveness. It's a gift you give yourself.
Yeah, we never had the big I forgive you, conversation. It's just thoughts have wings, man. And those thoughts of those going to her, and just the appreciation, and I text, and when I go see my kids, and I mean, towards the end, I mean, we'd stand next to each other during their entire baseball games, talking, and but it's just, I always ask them, like, who do you need to forgive? I finished a talk. This guy walked up to me. It was a half day's workshop. He walked up to me, 60-year-old guy, financial advisor. He's like, that was all good, but that forgiveness thing, are you serious? I'm like, well, I know based on results, like, yeah. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I've never forgave my ex-wife. I'm like, how long has it been? He's like, 30 years. I'm like, all right. He's like, wait here. I'm like, okay. And talking to some other people. Fred, this guy comes in about an hour later. He had this big bushy beard, just sobbing, like, just, he had snot in his beard. Like, I mean, he went outside and he called her, and just had this, like, forgiveness conversation, whatever that had been going. I mean, he waited 30 years to have it. He looked 10 years younger, dude. I'm not lying. Like, he looked 10 years younger.
He's been drinking poison for 30 years.
Dude, I know. And he came up to me and just looked at me, gave me this huge hug, like, kissed me on the cheek, left. I never saw him again. Like, he's like, I called her. The last thing I want to say about this is I have a good friend. He's kind of an energy healer. People think he's kind of woo-woo, but I mean, he's literally saved hundreds of lives. And he cured himself of cancer. And he works a lot with cancer patients. And I'm like, how'd you cure yourself of cancer? He's like, oh, I had to forgive my mom and my dad. He did other things, right, to take care of himself. Never did traditional stuff. But he worked through his forgiveness stuff. He's like, when I meet someone with cancer, they have a resentment. They have a long list of people that they resent and they haven't forgiven. And I'm like, lack of forgiveness is a cause of cancer? He's like, I don't think we can scientifically prove it. He's like, but that's my experience. So if you want to live longer, you better do it.
Yeah, it's eating, it's literally eating you alive, I think. And releasing that, and starting with forgiveness. I listeners, I know we're talking about this a lot, but if you can learn to do this, and it's a bold move to pick up that phone and say, you know what, I forgive you for all of this stuff that happened, and I hope you forgive me too, because we're all flawed individuals trying to find our way. Nobody's perfect, and nobody should be labeled by the worst thing they ever did in their life, because we've all struggled, and we've all failed, and we've all not been who we wanted to be in certain moments.
For sure.
So awesome stuff. So you speak all over the world on these topics, so I'm gonna bug you about something that I picked up. Is the audiobook recorded yet?
It's not. How's
that working for you?
I got a guy that's tracking me down to do it. I just haven't committed to it. So yeah, you're right.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know what? It's easier than you think, and takes less time than you think, and also, this is just personal advice. Your listeners, you're going to be in on this. It's your book, so remember that they're listening, not reading. So sometimes, if you want to emphasize something, change the verbiage, elaborate on it, repeat it 3 times. I heard Brene Brown do that over and over again in her last audiobook. She said, I know you're listening, so I'm just going to say this again slowly so that you get it.
That's good. Yeah, I like it.
And but when you're recording, the beauty of audio recording is you just go back to the last punctuation. Unlike video, where it's like, stop, we gotta go back to the beginning and record the whole thing because we can't cut it. It goes much faster than you think, and it's I sell probably 10 times more audiobooks than hardcovers of my book.
Okay, interesting.
And it's just a different way of them absorbing the information, because they'll buy the Kindle too, or they'll buy the hardcover too, because they want to read it. But there's so many places where people listen, and your knowledge and experience is so valuable to everyone. That I think that's one of your biggest challenges, is your avatar is 90% of the population
Sure.
has money issues, if not 95 or 98%.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. And so what Chris said, I hope is sinking into you, is like, if you effectively deal with your money issues, it will reverberate through your whole life. So it's a great place to start. And to relieve your stress on money would be a phenomenal change in your life. If that's not true for you,
Amen.
then you've solved your money problem. But for most people, that's not true at all.
Yeah,
so
amen.
What's the best way to track you down, Chris?
It's my website's chrisfelton.me. And so people can, get some stuff there. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, so they can find me. But yeah,
there's some great videos there on YouTube. The book is Think and Grow You by Chris Felton, Felton. It is on Amazon. The audiobook is coming, but buy the paperback or the Kindle version in the meantime. And Chris, any final thoughts you want to transmit to my loyal followers?
No, I mean, I think all the stuff we're talking about, like, I think one of the things people are challenged with is, well, what if I do all this work and I don't get what I want? And is it going to be worth it? So I think that's a pretty big mind virus. That you can just set aside, and you got to put some trust in some things. But the work I've done, like, I know it's worth it. And every second I put into making myself better, it's worth it. And as you might not see immediate results, but start a plan to grow you, whatever that is. Doesn't have to be big. Set aside the time, but all the work is going to be worth it, because it compounds. There's a compounding impact to you working on you, and your family will thank you very much.
Oh, I know. There's one more thing I think you can add to it, because I heard you say this, and you had heard it from somewhere. I think it was probably a coach. The difference between being interested in change and what?
Well, just committed. I mean, that's, when, the day after the purse throwing incident with my wife, right? And I took 100% responsibility for the crap show that was my life, and she decided to keep me. And, she went off and interviewed wealthy couples, and we wrote our first book, Couples Money, from that, like what she got from that, what we applied to our lives. But she asked me, she's like, I'm going to go do this to figure out what they do to change our lives. She's like, what are you doing, jackass? And I'm like, I'm going to figure out how this mindset that's so-called smart keeps creating a mess. And I said, I'm not interested in changing, honey. I'm committed. And she's like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, well, most people are interested. And so once, Fred, they face a little resistance, they take a chicken exit, or they quit. How do you build a muscle in a gym? You have to introduce resistance to it, right? And so I said, I'm committed. She's like, what does that mean? I'm like, you know how an Olympic athlete treats their sport? That's going to be me with my money project. I am all freaking in. I'm up early, I'm reading, I'm doing everything possible to make sure that our lives change. And then I call it the line in the sand moment. Then I turned to her and I said, we will never be back here again. And
Awesome.
that decision, changed our lives. And I knew it. Felt it wasn't just fluffy talk. I knew it in my bones. So I said, we will never be back here again. And I was going to do everything I could. And it takes a commitment to change your life.
Yeah. Committed to doing whatever it takes. That's beautiful. Well, folks, I think there's the mic drop moment from what has been tons of valuable information. Chris, thank you so much. Everyone, get his book and get committed to getting right about money and watch it reverberate through your whole life. And check out Chris every way you can. Chris, thanks so much for your
Thanks,
time.
Fred.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you, brother.
All right. And everyone out there, keep becoming bolder and watch how it impacts every part of your life.